Great. Hi, I want to welcome everyone to Short Film Block 3 of the Imagine This Women's International Film Festival. And thank you to Patrice for asking me to be a moderator. My name is Kincaid Walker. I'm a filmmaker and a writer and an actress. I had a digital series, Hug It Out, which I was honored to have win at Imagine This Best Web Series in 2017, and started a company, Twin Flame Films, and have been making various projects ever since, one of which is a docu-series that just came out called The Morning After, featuring real voters talking about this upcoming election and all of the stakes associated with that for them personally. And I just want to say it is such a pleasure to get the chance to meet all of these wonderful female filmmakers. I've had the pleasure of watching your films and reading your bios. And I'm really excited to dig in and to talk about your projects and talk about what are your values and what excites you as filmmakers. So without further ado, I want to just have each of you and whoever would like to go first can jump in, but tell us your name, give us just a little, tell us about yourself just a little bit, the name of your project and what that project, why you were attracted to that story, and let us, yeah, dig in. So whoever wants to go first, please jump in.
I'll go first. My name's Erica Davis Marsh. I'm the writer-director of CODA. I live in Los Angeles. I'm a recent graduate of USC Film School. CODA for me is it's a story about a child of deaf adults, and actually my nephews are actually CODA. Their dad is deaf, so it's a story about a girl, but it has elements of my family in it. And it's also about dance, and I was a former dancer. So it's really a little combination of me and also representing people that are similar to what my nephews, their story as well a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah, it was really, really interesting to watch it. Thank you so much, Erica.
I'll just chime in as the producer of CODA. I'm
Perfect.
Cassandra Jones.
Oh, fabulous.
Yes, so I am Erica's sister. So my husband is deaf, and my children are CODAs. And just really quick, the importance of this film to me is to show that disability often is perceived of as the thing, right? Like you do or do not have hearing or whatnot. But really, every disability lives within a family of people that have to interact with that. And I really wanted to put that in the story as well. So that was a big reason why I wanted to make CODA.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right.
So next, hi, I'm Jessica Patel.
Hi.
I'm the director, producer of Age of Dysphoria. And Age of Dysphoria is a story about Finley, a woman who is newly sober and trying to make an amends that is one that's pretty contentious in whether or not she should make, and yet she feels compelled to do. And it's really the intersection of these two people in their lives as this big secret is revealed, and kind of finding out that the amends that she wants to make isn't going to be exactly what she thinks it will be, and the ramifications of that. And my partner's Laura Vandervort, who starred in the film and wrote it.
Fantastic.
For myself, I'll jump in because Jessica was just talking about it. I came up with the concept for the project, not because I necessarily related to a lot about the character Finley, but I wanted to do a character piece. In my acting career, I've done a lot of supernatural sci-fi stuff, so I really wanted to do something that was more about the performance. And a dark, gritty film. And also Gordon Pinsent, who was the male lead in the film, is a Canadian icon and has been my mentor since I was 12. So I made the opportunity for myself to finally get to work with him. and he said yes. So we were
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, he was great in it. You both are great performances. So thank you so much to both of you. All right.
Oh, you go, Kylie, if you want.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kylie Eaton. I'm the director and writer of Kinetic, which is a proof of concept short film about a young girl living in the Midwest who gets supernatural powers and has to contend with her less than stand-up family. And what drew me to making it is I'd actually written the feature screenplay for Kinetic. And last year it placed in the Screencraft sci-fi and fantasy competition as a finalist, and I got some really good feedback on it. And so I decided to make, it's about 5 minutes long. We shot it in Indiana on location, and it just sort of serves as a preview into both the story and the characters and also the world of Kinetic.
Awesome. I loved it. Well, I should say I loved all of yours, but it's very impressive, the effects and some of the things you did with it. So we'll get into that as we go on. All right, Whitney. Great.
I'm the Whitney Cusack, writer and director of No More, which is, I guess it's a microfilm. It's about 30 seconds long, but essentially it's no more hashtags we need justice in regards to the Black Lives Matter social justice movement. It was inspired by initially the Ahmaud Arbery case that took place a few months ago, and in the process of producing, Breonna Taylor was murdered and George Floyd. So it was unfortunately very timely. And it just highlights the fact that as African Americans, we have had to shelter in place long before the pandemic quarantine started.
Yeah, I thought that was such an interesting correlation to talk about what is returning to normal. You know, we keep hearing about returning to normal. So I want to dig into some of that idea of performative activism versus real activism with you too. So thank you so much. Thanks. All right. The pressure. Emr, do you want to go or?
Hey, okay, sorry. I'll go next. I'm sorry. Yep. Hi, I'm Emr Fitzgerald. I'm the producer, writer, and director of Reunion, and I made it. So yeah, Reunion. Well, funny story. I won't joke like, you know, my mom's a vampire and I know karate. So that's not where it came from. Honestly, it came from a place where I grew up loving action movies. I always, you know, Terminator 2 and Point Break and stuff, but I always wanted to see women at the forefront or deal with you know, familial issues with family, like you know, mothers and daughters and everything. So that's where that idea came from. And, you know, pushing the boundaries that we knew at my school anyway, with fight choreography. And as the piece went along, like we explored more the you know, what it means to find your you know, find your mother again, but then your mother is a monster, but then is she, you know, how, you know, how much can you judge people for decisions based off of, you know, a virus or a mental illness or people's own decisions and everything like that. So that's you know, that's what I brought.
No, absolutely. And that it really works in that genre. It's very powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And Michelle, I think you were.
Sure. Mine's also a mother-daughter story, and it's about a daughter that was in Cuba, and her mom, after 20 years, goes back to Cuba to reunite with this daughter that she left behind. And it's a period piece that I shot on location in Cuba. I wrote, directed, and produced it. And it's inspired by my mother's story. She didn't leave a daughter behind, but she left a boyfriend and really the love of her life. This whole notion of when you leave a country behind, there's this nostalgia that naturally happens. And the story is also inspired by my husband's birth story, because he was adopted. And after 50 years of being separated from his mother, he got to know her. And they reunited, and it was a very special bond. That was a very unique relationship, and I wanted to explore that, but also going deeper into the themes of my own heritage being Cuban American. And Pia Canela means cinnamon skin. And it's also a race, interracial love story, because I think that's something that hasn't been explored very deeply within our own Latinx culture, is how to go deeper and sort of look inward at our own race issues that we have. And for me, it was super important to cast Cubans of all diverse backgrounds, Afro-Cubans and white Cubans on the island, and really go back to the 1950s and really explore those themes and basically who left and who stayed, because it's very important.
Yeah, it's a remarkable story, and I'm really excited to get into how you actually managed to helm it and do it to the extent you did. It's really interesting, very eye-opening for me. So, all right, I think we have one more. Yep, absolutely, go for it.
Hi, ladies. My name is Chantal. I'm the filmmaker and animator of Recipe in Exile. I'm a fourth generation Armenian from Lebanon, and the story was inspired by my story and that of my ancestors. It's basically the story of two immigrant women, two different generations that are linked by this family recipe that keeps being passed down from generation to generation, and that helps them adapt wherever they are. So it's funny that I went right after Michelle, because she was talking about nostalgia and when you leave a place, and my whole story was born out of nostalgia for this recipe my grandmother makes when I came here to New York. So we can talk about it more later, but that's
Fabulous, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. So I'd love to start, because it's always that process of people have a story they want to tell, but then how do you actually make it something that people can watch? And I think obviously all as female filmmakers, there's probably some intersection between being a female filmmaker and the way you got your film made, whether that's, you can speak to some or all of this, if it's funding or locations or the way you kind of crafted the piece as directors or producers. Just kind of dig into kind of how these pieces became films we can watch, and how you feel that's influenced a little or a lot or none at all by being females.
I'll go.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. I'll start, because for me, I could not shoot because of the times that we're in. It was not safe to go outside and get somebody with a camera. But I definitely felt it very important to tell the story. I myself had just started jogging during the time of being home, and felt nervous to go outside in my own neighborhood because of that Ahmaud Arbery case. So I sat for a minute and literally just thought, okay, I'm in quarantine and I'm in quarantine. So it's a mix of that, and really just said, how can I tell this story in an effective way? So just for me, the most important thing was pulling the exact right stock that was, that would pull emotion out of people, and then also getting the right music. And there's like my friend's son that does the little VO piece at the tail end of the 30 seconds. So, and then I also spoke to a friend of mine who's an artist who created the hashtag image for it. I initially said to him, I want it to look tattered. I want it to feel old, like it's an old system. And he came back with something that was even more elevated. So for me, it was just a matter of speaking to people that I knew would get the vision, and, having to step outside of the box because we couldn't step outside. So I think all of those elements helped me to craft it. And then it also really determined the length as well, because I didn't want it to drag on, knowing that I couldn't physically go outside, speak to people, shoot the way I wanted it to. So
interesting. Yeah. And so is that the last piece of the man jogging? Because I would say he bears a startling resemblance to Ahmaud Arbery, and just that kind of everyday moment of, I'm just going out for a jog, I'll be home, it's very powerful. Did you just happen upon that actor or that person had been?
No, I literally just dug for stock. Like,
wow.
Yeah, seriously. Like I dug for pieces of footage that I read that resonated with me.
Yeah.
And when I found it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the one.
Yeah.
Especially, and then the voiceover, some of it is like news footage, but then some of it, I got my friends to just say the line as if they were talking to their mom. I'm just going out for a jog. I'm just going out for a drive. I'll be back soon. Because it's those innocent sentences that we essentially take for granted, and not everybody makes it back.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. thank you. So anyone, I know Michelle, if you want to talk about what shooting in Cuba, the sort of, if there were, how you were able to accomplish that. I know you spoke to that some.
Absolutely. It was definitely challenging as a female filmmaker, especially because I think the assumption is that you're not going to be as assertive, or that also there's a huge assumption that you're not going to have the guts to strap $20,000 on your body and go through customs. And it was, it's kind of crazy to do your first project in a communist country where we don't have good relations with them. But I was really determined because I thought that it brought authenticity to the piece, and I really wanted to cast Cubans, and most of my cast was all Cuban except for the lead, who plays a Cuban American, and that was played by a Cuban American. So it was very important for me to take all those risks and really put myself out there. And I did all of the pre-production myself. I flew out to Cuba a year before. I did all the casting, all location scouting, door to door. I had a producer friend of mine that I met for the first time on the island, and the two of us we went in a van. I had a bunch of like hipster pictures from Pinterest, and then we would go up to the local campesinos and be like, oh, I love this place, could you show me where it is? And sort of just having the guts to be able to do that, to basically just really immerse yourself. And the other thing I found challenging too is when you're working with DPs, which I adore. I had two DPs actually, and they were super supportive, but they're super experienced and super knowledgeable. I think a lot of the assumption is that you're not going to be very technical because you're a woman. And that was very far from the truth, because my background is street photography. So I was super decisive on what I wanted. And that whole push and pull that you might have, I think that it's a very unique situation that you can find yourself in as a female filmmaker, especially a first time female filmmaker, with the assumption that you're not going to be technical. And I've always been in the sciences. So it's just kind of like a strange assumption I find, but it's great. You just continue and stick to what you believe in, and you have your vision, and you try to communicate as respectfully as possible, but you don't back down just because the assumption is that you're not going to care.
Absolutely. And it's incredible. I mean, to see the buildings, and inside the buildings, and the cars, and then you go out into the country for the sort of the love story aspect of it. And that must have been a huge undertaking. That's fantastic. It's really beautiful. I can see how decisive you were about your choices with shots.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a wonderful experience. I do have to say that the Cubans on the island were super. I never felt like they didn't respect me as a female director. I feel like a lot of them had a lot of experience working with females or having females in charge. I never felt like the Cuban crew ever looked at me any differently than their male counterparts.
Do you feel like in the States, is there a stronger push and pull on that in the States?
Maybe, ironically enough. I don't know if it has. I mean, I know that in Cuba, there was a huge feminist movement and a lot of push to put a lot of females in charge. So I think in the film industry, especially, there's a lot of female producers. But I mean, it's hard to make a generalization off of my particular crew and the one experience, but that's the experience that I had. And I was very grateful for that, because you already have, as a first-time filmmaker, a lot of odds against you, and it's difficult to sort of just stay in control without just being controlling.
Yeah.
You want to listen to everyone and have everyone's ideas, because they're all very good at what they do and they all have ideas. So it's all about, having a great balance between those two things.
Yeah. And I would say that that's one of the qualities of females, that we actually have that kind of ability to, I won't denigrate the men, but I think that kind of being able to delegate and also be in charge, but have respect for everybody's role.
Right.
Wonderful. Well,
if it's okay.
Yes, please.
So Jessica is obviously the director of our film. And I had obviously wanted this film to be shot by a female. I mean, that's a no-brainer. But Jess and I were working together on a Netflix series that was very male dominant. And I had this idea spiraling in my head for about a year, and we'd known each other for quite a few years. And it was on a very male dominant day that I cornered her on set when they were spritzing down the guy doing the push-up, and pitched the idea to her. And we had a meeting after that, and luckily she agreed to it. But it's odd that we're talking about this, that sort of everything came together in a male dominant environment, that Jess and I were able to create this thing of our own that we had the control over. And she did a great job. Really proud of it.
You did a great job. It was such, I mean, I would say too, this was the first time that I had been in a situation where I got to really, we threw all in too. Our writer, Zoe Robin, female, we had an all-female producing team, and we really were like, let's do this, like, and let's just flip the script. And it was such an amazing experience because we all came, you know, with a lot of work ethic, and we really wanted to do a great job. And I always felt supported, and I always felt heard. And I think, you know, we all kind of built our team in that way. And then from there, because that's how it felt at the top, you know, we were able to then, you know, hire crew, you know, in all different areas, and really to diversify our crew and to hire people that hadn't been on sets before and stuff. And we just really made it a family and team experience. So, you know, that's been such a great experience, and something like, as Laura's getting ready to direct her first short film, like we're trying to do a lot of the same.
I don't know how you guys do it, by the way. I'm trying to figure out how to do a shot list right now. That's supposed to be the easy thing.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. And did it feel, I'm assuming, I'm inferring it felt a lot different from that Netflix show where it was a very male dominated. Did the set had a lot of contrasts, your set with that one?
I think business, you know, I think in general, like what's so great about, you know, I know Laura's been acting since she was a kid, and, you know, I've been working in the business for the last 20 years. And I think it's amazing to see how things are changing. Like it's about time, you know, and it still has a long way to go. Yeah. But, you know, festivals like this and filmmakers like, you know, everyone on the screen putting out material that's really personal, you know, we're part of that, we're leading that charge. So I think that I'm just really excited to be in the next phase, whatever this is going to look like. And there's a lot of change happening, and I think supporting each other really helps us get to that next place as a you know, as a business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'd just like to tag in real quick. Oh, Erica, maybe after me, but I just think listening to every story here, and I think this applies to our story as well, like the lens and the subject and the people that women want to put the camera on is very different, I think, than kind of typical Hollywood. And I know for us, and what Michelle said about diversity, it was extremely important to us to bring diversity into our film, both behind the camera and in front of it. So all of our actors that are deaf are played by deaf characters, the deaf actors for the deaf characters. And that's really important. I think that, you know, especially when women, I forget what that rule is about, like a woman talking really important something to another woman and not whatever, like that rule.
Oh, the Patel test? Or
yes, exactly, right? Like that you're actually a character that has something to say. And like having that lens of the character and the film being in that world versus having women in it, but not necessarily being of the film, right? And so for me, like as the producer of Erica, we came up with the concept of the story together. I don't know that I would have thought about this if I wasn't, you know, a parent who thought about the world that my children live and how they interact with having a deaf parent and what that means in their everyday life and the bridge of that. And I think women are so often bridges between this and that, whatever that is, right? The bridge between this culture and that culture, as Michelle said, the bridge between different perspectives. Oftentimes we're people that can bring in more perspectives than just our own. And that I think is a very female eye, so to speak, on filmmaking and creating that is really needed right now. And it sounds like all these wonderful films are filling that gap. And it's just really awesome.
I agree. I think women, we have great sort of eyes towards being connectors and connecting and finding ways to kind of bridge the gap when people seem different, but they aren't. So I agree. And I'm curious, Erica, both of you to speak to in terms of the filmmaking. If I'm understanding this right, the lead actress does not know ASL. So talk about that. I thought that was amazing.
She's a dancer, so we knew. I mean, she's a professional dancer. She's amazing. Yes. She came through Dysphoria, who was our choreographer.
Oh yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, he's great. So you think you can dance, and used to dance with Janet Jackson and crazy stuff. He's amazing. Yeah. But so yeah, she learned it for the role specifically. But we kind of knew she could do it. I mean, we tested her on it. She had to audition, and we taught her a scene, and she came in very prepared. And but we knew that she interacted through the world in a movement-based emotion, right? She's a dancer, and that's really what ASL is. It's emotion in movement. It's language in movement, right? So we knew it would be very, very similar, and she really nailed it in terms of, I mean, she learned sign language. I mean, she knew exactly what she was saying. She knew what the other people were saying. She really picked it up, and she's actually continued it on, and as you know, she told us stories of where she's been places with other deaf people, and she sort of worked a little bit as a bridge to help certain situations when she could. I also think it's interesting that our character really is a very shy character, and that's not something we see a lot in women, especially lead characters of women. She's much more comfortable as in sign language than she is in English. She doesn't like take on the world, you know what I mean? There's always, when I was getting notes, a lot of people were like, well, what's she trying to do? What's her agency or whatever? And I'm like, she's just trying to figure out where she belongs. That's what she's trying to do. And she's doing it in her own way. And her own way is smaller and quieter than you want her to be, but that is exactly who she is. And that's what I feel like also women bring, is they bring sometimes just, you know, it just doesn't have to be the slam bam, you know, kind of action-based kind of film. It might be, and it's certainly great if it is, but it doesn't have to be. And this, she had plenty of internal drive driving her. It just wasn't an external drive. And Carrington did a great job and was super emotive and really beautiful in her take on things, and I was super excited to work with her. But yeah, she did learn sign language for the, luckily we didn't have to teach her.
Fantastic. And the dance at the end is, I mean, it's really incredible that you put that together. And I love, go ahead.
Yeah, that was just, that was real testament to Tice. He called in a lot of favors, and we couldn't have done it without him, because it was a student film. We had like no money basically. Wow. And you know, and he just called in all these professional dancers. Some of them had one rehearsal. They had a videotape of the dance and one rehearsal, and then they shot, because they're that good. They're just that good. So you know, it was amazing. And you know, we shot it for like a day and a half. The final dance. So yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. All right. So I think we have, Kylie, if you want to.
Yeah, I was gonna sort of jump in about, you know, making something while female, just from a genre perspective, because Kinetic is a superhero film. And, you know, when I wrote the script, the feature script originally, it was suggested to me that if I wanted to like go out and get the feature financed or sell it with myself attached as a director, that I would need to make a proof of concept. And, you know, I was excited about making a proof of concept for Kinetic, because I grew up in the Midwest, so I had always wanted to shoot something in the Midwest. I loved the story. I wanted to explore the characters. but you know, I was like, I have this other work, you know, I have other short films I can show, and it was kind of like, well, it's a trust thing of like, it needs to be exactly this story in this genre, and sort of implied in that way. And listen, like, we all get it. We're all used to playing the game. We're all used to filmmaking while being a woman by this point. But it is one of those things of like, oh, I probably wouldn't have made this proof of concept if I was a male director, perhaps. It's something that I think women are expected to prove themselves more. And, you know, certainly I'm a white woman, so I can only speak to that experience. Other women have to prove themselves a lot more than I do in that situation. But I do think that, you know, when you're stepping outside of your genre in terms of what a female normally makes, that puts a little more of a mark on you to be like, well, can you really do this? Can you really do superhero? So I think that's one of the things about filmmaking while female that I experienced on this. But I will say, we shot, like I said, in Indiana, and I didn't know anyone in Indiana before I went out there, but luckily through a friend of a friend, I met a producer. I was out there for a couple festivals for another short, and it was myself and my DP that went out, and we got hooked up with a local producer, and he brought on a lot of our crew were either recent graduates or currently in film school at Indiana University. And it's interesting that I heard Michelle talk about, you know, the reaction she got from people maybe in a different country. And I think the reaction I got to myself as a female filmmaker from, I don't want to say kids and make myself sound 100 years old, but you know, the next generation of upcoming filmmakers, I think was actually quite a different experience. It didn't seem like they cared one way or the other. You know, they were respectful and hardworking and didn't question anything that I was, you know, bringing to the table in terms of what I wanted to shoot. And so I think that was a really cool experience. And then one of the females afterwards did tell me like, oh, seeing you do this makes me feel like I can do it too. And I was like, oh, you can, I promise. Yes, you know, yes. So that was a great moment for me of like, oh, it makes it all worth it. All those sweat and tears and my laptop dying the day before shooting, it's all worth it now. But yeah, I think that kind of gives me hope that, you know, the generation that's coming out of school now or just starting to work in the entertainment field does have a bit of a different perspective in terms of what what their expectations are of what a director looks like.
That's fantastic. Actually, some progress, hopefully. Yes, yes. Chantal, your film is so unique and so wonderful. I know you're an animator and multifaceted animator, and I'd love to hear about that process of making this. And I'll let you jump in.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I'm a one-woman crew, so I didn't have any of the experiences you guys described. There was concept, story, directing, coloring, animating. Animation is very solo thing in many ways, but I was lucky that I had lots of female advisors around me, whether it was at school, because this was my thesis film, my master thesis film, or my own family. I actually interviewed my grandmother. I watched her cooking the recipe from scratch. We all sat around the table. So all the footage, I watched it for hours of us gossiping and cooking and all of that. So it's very much based on real experiences with women, with my family, the female members of my family. So I didn't have that experience, but the interesting part was after I was done and I started showing it to people, the question I kept getting was, why are there no men in this story? Because for those of you who didn't see it, it's 4 generations of women, the same family from great grandmother to great granddaughter. And everyone's like, where are the men? There's only one man in the beginning and then he dies. I was like, well, it's a female centric story. It's about the strength of women in times of war. And I'm a female and I want to tell our story and our version of it. But it was just interesting getting that question in general. I'm like, I don't think people would have questioned it the other way around.
Oh, right. Yeah. How many war movies and do we watch with they're just almost all male casts? So yeah. How I'm actually interested, shocked a little that you got asked that. But
yeah, and also the other reaction, which was beautiful, was some people, that was the best, the most rewarding reaction was actual tears that I got, that some people watch. And I guess that was just them relating it to their own stories and them remembering their recipe that someone passed down to them from their families, but it was also always women who seemed to react more to my stories. So it was just an interesting thing when it came down to the audience at the end. That's when I started feeling some differences. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm a female filmmaker and this is a female story. So that's when I felt it the most. But, yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. Has everyone spoken on this? Amar, you didn't yet, right? No,
Okay.
yeah, go for
Well,
it.
I'm most likely gonna echo what Michelle and Kylie talked about. But yes, I was in the middle of a very male-dominated area in my life. So when I started off making Reunion and I wrote the script, I actually thought it was gonna be easier than it was, and I knew it was gonna be hard work with the fight scenes and DP and the bigger crew because this was the biggest film I had ever made at that point. But actually, the hardest thing was dealing with people who thought they had control over the movie at the time, and it was very much that that language of one guy told me that I didn't have credibility to make this movie. People were always surprised, like the mother has super strength and the daughter can fight, and then the father is not the main character. There's a female villain, and then she's not really a villain, but we actually are supposed to feel sorry for her. Like they just a lot of people couldn't wrap their heads around the script. So I felt at the time it was a very I felt beat down quite a lot. Like Kylie mentioned, there's blood, sweat, and tears, and highs and lows emotionally, and then you start believing it, unfortunately, when you're told it over and over. So luckily, I brought in my friend Ann Miller Larson as my co-producer, and she flew down and she like jumped right in and she co-produced the movie with me. And it was just a huge, godsend because she reminded me, like, she's like, I know you, like, I know that you're strong. I know you know what you want. I know you know the story, and don't listen to those people anymore. And this is your film, and you just make it, and I'm here for you. And then she did, like, she made the little Polaroid, and then she made like copies of it, and she helped like with the props, and then she took the behind the scenes photos. Like, my friend and my co-producer really went above and beyond, and that was what I needed sorely at the time because I had those people, the no credibility stuff in my head throughout the film. And I guess luckily it did I didn't intend it to be, but the film ended up being a lot less. I thought it was going to be just like a kind of fun little superhero action romp, but fighting so hard to make this film, like it just came through with the directing. It came through with my conversations with the actresses, and I feel like it actually grounded a lot better and brought out the fight a lot more than I intended. So the piece actually was morphing right before my eyes just from the experience. And I had to learn that huge lesson, even for myself, to stand up for myself more, to use my voice more. And then, as you guys know, like, men have an easier time demanding what they want and women don't. And I even had to realize that as well. And so, it was a hard journey, but I'm proud of how the movie turned out. I'm proud that my sisterhood stood by me, but also, we had male crew members who supported women. Like they were not the people asking me these questions. They weren't the ones second guessing me. Like they treated me equally, and I appreciate that so much because so unfortunately we still have those issues today, and it's like we need to kind of stop like the thought process of women can't do action and horror and sci-fi and everything like that. And also, and I just want to add to, like, I'm going from that place to this place, and I'm so proud to like show this movie to everybody else because I love that everyone else had family stories and deep cathartic pieces and pieces about like our civilization. So I'm really proud of you guys too. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love to, we dug into this a little bit in each of when you were talking, but I would love to see if anyone wants to speak more to this idea of the fact that we are in this time now where we're telling more stories about people, non-traditional stories, whether that's a more shy heroine or a action, a action story, or racially diverse stories, stories about, just all the gamut. Addiction, I think, it's, Laura and Jessica. So I think it's such an interesting time that we're all kind of coming in. We've been speaking to that. So if anyone wants to kind of jump in there to speak to that more about telling stories of traditionally underrepresented protagonists.
Well, I think it's always important that whatever story you're telling, it's a very specific story, and specificity is really the universality of everything. And so I think you're seeing more from women and from all the best directors, people really honoring where people come from. For us in CODA, it was really important that we got the deaf community really right, and we brought in people to work with us to make sure that we were getting it right. We're sort of side members of the deaf community, meaning we have family members that are deaf. But it was really important. We had interpreters on set. We had made sure that the actors felt really comfortable. We made sure that everybody, not just our main actors, but we had background actors who were deaf in certain scenes. And we really wanted that authenticity to come through. I think that the name of the game is just really being true to the things you know and getting the help on the things that you don't know. Really making sure that you offer opportunities to people who really have that authentic experience, and making sure they're collaborating with you if it's not exactly your exact experience, so that you can really just dive down deep. And then when you do, I think you feel the universal kind of storytelling kick out, and everybody sees the humanity in everyone else. And really that's what I'm always trying to do, is get to the humanity, whatever kind of story I'm telling. It doesn't matter the genre or who the characters are specifically, but I am looking for the humanity in their story and the way to like touch the audience and say we're all basically the same. We all want to be loved and be accepted and know who we are, and that's all we're trying to do. So
absolutely.
I think I'll speak to that. For me, because I, work full time on the side. So it's like sometimes you kind of lose the reason why you got into this in the first place, the passion of it all, and being at home sitting, dealing with all of 2020 that it has had to offer. You start to really evaluate what's the most important thing. And you rediscover that passion. So for me, it's like, I want to tell stories that matter. And stories that, like you just said, are authentic to yourself, whether or not you're shining a light on somebody who's never been seen by a vast audience. It could be a little kid that you see at the grocery store when you go every Saturday, and you're like, where's their parent? And then you kind of dig into that, whatever it is. But I think that this time has caused me to pay attention to a lot more in a different way, and look through a different lens, and hope to be inspired in a deeper way.
Fantastic. That's fantastic. So Michelle, I'd love to have you talk about the relationship between the daughter and mother, and in terms of colorism in your piece, if you would. Speak to that a bit.
Sure. I mean, it was very important for me to explore that, because I feel that being Latina, and well, I'm half Ecuadorian, half Cuban, my dad's indigenous. So being a little mixed and within my own family has led me to confront a lot of, it has been challenging, because on one hand, we are considered minorities, but on the other hand, I grew up in Miami where we weren't minorities. So how much of white privilege am I enjoying, while also enjoying being looked at as a marginalized person? So it's a constant struggle that I go with back and forth. And a lot of Cuban Americans in South Florida are more fair-skinned, but that isn't the representation of everyone in Cuba. And when you go to Cuba, it's pretty much half Afro-Cuban mixed, and so it's a very complicated lineage. And I thought it was interesting to focus on a Cuban American who's fair-skinned and who had this forbidden love for an Afro-Cuban. and their baby who they left behind, would they have left the baby behind had it been a white baby? That's something that's was very important for me to discuss, and this push and pull. And I don't want to give away the ending to anybody who hasn't seen the movie, but it's a little bit unresolved as to what her choice is and how she feels, if she wants to stay where she's always known, if she's going to accept this woman or if she's not. I mean, it's sort of open-ended. I think it was really important for me to really go there and really explore those issues, because I think a lot of times it isn't really explored. And I think it's super important to go there.
Yeah,
I don't know if I
absolutely.
answered the question, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, absolutely. That kind of the nuance within a culture, within a race, or the idea of, we have these kind of stark ideas, especially in the United States, but to kind of dig into that more, that there's all of that nuance to be discovered, which your film is a great, it really comes through in your film, that kind of idea and exploration. So are you, let's see, I'm getting some questions here. I want to honor those. Kylie, as far as your film, are you planning on making it a feature? I know it's a proof of concept. Are you kind of working towards that now, or where is that process at?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, for everyone, quarantine and COVID kind of threw a wrench in all of our plans for the foreseeable future. So it's it's still something that I'm working on developing, whether that be in a feature format or a TV format. It's something that's definitely in the works, while I'm also, trying to take advantage of this time to start up some other writing projects as well. But I think, for me, whatever the angle is in terms of format, I think that it is something that I would love to make into, sort of a longer form project, just because I do, we've talked, and there's some other films in here that focus on that mother-daughter relationship. And I think it's so interesting in a superhero film, because sometimes we'll see like son, mother, or daughter, dad. A lot of times we see obviously father and son stories. And so so much of superhero films and sort of comic book films, things like that have this sort of mythology around them and have this backstory, comes from, maybe it's a generational thing or whatever it is. We're looking at those stories, and I really want to bring sort of that female perspective to it and explore it through a mother-daughter story, or in this case it's an absent mother and her daughter, her aunt figure, that's her mother figure. Just trying to explore that more, I think is something that, from what I've heard, a lot of people would love to see.
Yes, I definitely would. I will speak for myself and say I definitely would. And to Jessica and Laura, are you thinking of working together on something again? I know Laura, you're preparing to direct your first short. Will Jess be a part of that, or on something else?
Oh, she was the first person I called.
Fantastic.
Jess will be EPing it, and she's been guiding me through the process of getting my crew, because I'm very goal oriented. I want to know the right things that I'm supposed to be doing at the right times. And I don't think there's a proper order. I think what I'm understanding is every director has their own style, and you don't have to, take after a certain person. I'm an actor directing, so I'll probably more of an actor's director as opposed to a technical, because I did not go to film school, and I'm trying to be okay with that. But I also want to make sure I keep my voice on set. That's important to me, especially with our TV. I just, sorry, my dog's in the background. I just want to make sure my story, I'm able to tell that without too many voices coming in. And I know with Jess involved and some of the other crew from our previous film, that will happen. But yeah, continuing to work together.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
I
yes,
think
please.
That's a great thing. It's like, when it's always interesting when you collaborate with an actor, because you don't always know like how far that collaboration is going to go. And with Laura, I mean, it has been like all the way. Like, we have been like partners in this through the whole thing, and to the point where you know, we shot our film a year ago, and I feel like we talk all the time, and we've been on this great journey, even though it's been strange with COVID. You know, we've been in 16 festivals now, and so I think we're really looking at what's next, and certainly Laura's project, and we have a few features that we've been starting to take out together, and just finding ways that we can continue to collaborate and to continue to work with our Toronto-based team as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fantastic.
I found that when you find your squad, people who are like-minded and want to work as hard as you do, and you have a similar perspective, it's so important to hang on to those things, because I think we've all probably been in working relationships where people either don't pull their own weight, or I think it was who said that, someone taking over your own vision. So once you find your tribe, you stick with them. And obviously more are welcome, and everyone here, if you want to collaborate, let us know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes. We should all contact each other after this, and definitely and stay in touch. Well, Chantal, I'd love for you to just in terms of your animation, what are you looking towards next? And, you know, what's your sort of, what do you hope to do with your, I wrote down all of the different things you can do, which is amazing. So there's all these different elements to your animation. So.
Thank you. Anyone here who wants to turn their film into an animation, available. And we can do that in quarantine. It's possible. I have friends as well. We can have a team going. I'm working right now actually on a short about quarantining. This one is much more lighthearted, because my other one, I worked on it for 3 years, Recipe in Exile, and it was a bit heavy, even though I tried to not focus on the tragedies that led to the women becoming immigrants. It was all very metaphorical, but it was a bit heavy, and talking about it, also writing a whole thesis paper about it, I had to dive deep into the Armenian genocide and the Syrian civil war, and because everything had to be accurate, and I wanted it to be authentic. And so for this one, I wanted it to be much more lighthearted, the lighthearted view of quarantining, because I've had a very different experience from most people. Because I'm here in New York, my family's spread all over. So some of them are in Lebanon, some of them are in Armenia, some of them are in Kenya, but I'm here by myself. And my 3 roommates left as soon as quarantine happened. They're American, so they left, and I had the apartment to myself for the first time in forever, and ever actually. And I was in charge of 46 plants. I only killed 3. And so those are the kind of thoughts, like what was going on in my head. And I wrote it all down, and just funny things. And I learned how to cook, and just other things that people are doing, and I want to animate them in a funny, more lighthearted way. And I already have a vision for what it's going to look like. It's going to be very collagey and very CMYK, because just a big departure from my other film, because I need something completely new. I need a new page at this point, because that one was 3 years, and I'm ready for the next one. And hopefully by the time I'm done with this one, it will still be, I don't want it to be that relevant. I'd hope for us to be out of quarantine mode, but I still want it to be something that people can reflect on, like, oh, remember that, and laugh about it. Hopefully.
Yes. This is definitely a year that no one will ever forget. It's like be old and gray and thinking about this year. Well, I want to thank everyone, and if there's anyone who wants to say anything else, I think we're about at time right now. Give anyone a chance to. Great. All right. Well, I want to thank you. Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I was gonna say, you all inspire me as I'm starting the journey that you're already on. So thank you. Brilliant work. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure you underestimate how much you know as an actor, and being on sets all those years, since you're a kid, like, again, I think the theme of this for all of us is to say, we women can underestimate ourselves, but we shouldn't, and we shouldn't let anyone else do so either. Well, if there's somewhere there that people who are watching can follow your work, if that's on social media, if everyone wants to give a shout out to how people can continue to watch your work and follow you.
Sure. I'm at Piel Canela Movie at Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, on all social media, we're at Coda Movie USC, and also I'm E Davis Marsh on all social.
Fantastic.
I am Realistic1, REELISTIC, the number 1 for Instagram, and realisticmedia.com is my site.
Awesome. Yeah.
Age of Dysphoria is at Age of Dysphoria Film on Instagram. And I'm at Super Vandy, I think.
Awesome.
I'm at Chantal Sargent. It's the really long name altogether.
Perfect. So and your full name. Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm on everything, and it's M lowercase r Fitzgerald. So if you put that in, like, it's safe to say the Mr. will be me.
Awesome.
I'm at Kylie109 on Instagram, and then my website is KylieEatonFilm.com.
Perfect. Everyone. And I'm at Kincaid Walker, KINCAID Walker. So I look forward to staying in touch with you all, and want to congratulate you on your films. Say thank you to Imagine This and Patrice. And I'm excited to keep watching and following all of your work. So thank you all so much for being here today for this really fantastic discussion. I wish you all well.